what we did for the remainder of class then was work on proofs, and then we had a couple of other practice sheets that we did. So for the proofs, I would like for you to be extremely organized about your proofs and keeping your proofs so that you can utilize these when you're studying for the unit test. More than likely, I'll pull the test questions from these proofs that we have practiced and that you've done, some on your own, some as homework. So this sheet that you have says side, 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 and side, angle, side proof practice, which means I'm just giving you proofs here that involve those two theorems. I would like for you to do all of your work on lined paper, so you're going to keep this as a reference, and you're going to use lined paper. On your lined paper, go ahead and label it so you know later, because you'll have other ones that look like this after we get through a couple of other theorems. And you want to be able to know what's what. So we're going to put side, 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 and side, angle, side proofs. Then I would like for you just to number them. Let's use the numbers. You don't have to copy down the entire proof or draw the diagram. Just use this as a reference as you're going through and do your proof work on the lined paper. So let's go ahead and work through a few of these. We're going to do number 1. So the first thing that we want to do is we always want to look at our diagram and we want to look at what's given. And it's always best to start labeling with congruence markings what you already know. So here it says PQ is congruent to ST, and then QR is congruent to RT. And then it tells us R is the midpoint of PS. So we want to tuck that information away and also think through the theorems that we know. This is where your reference sheet from Unit 2 is going to come in handy. What we want to prove is that PQR is congruent to STR. So the nice thing is we know we're just heading towards proving these triangles congruent. We also know in this section that we're going to do it by side, side, side. So that gives us a clue that all we need to do is, I should have put 2 marks there. All we need to do is prove that these two sides are congruent, and then I can say the triangles are congruent. All right, so let's start by writing our statements. So on your paper, you're going to want to put statements. You do need to put that, and put reasons. Draw a nice line, and then draw a line down to create your chart. We always want to just start putting our given statements, right? So 1, it tells us that PQ is congruent to ST. Remember, we're going to number both sides, so that is given. The next thing they tell us is that QR is congruent to RT, and that was given as well. Now, the third thing that they tell us is that R is the midpoint of PS, and that was given. But I am going to have to take a little step here to take this information about R being the midpoint so that I can say that these two are congruent. So this is when we're going to look back at our reference, and your cue here is the word midpoint. So when you look back at your reference sheets, you saw that there was a definition of midpoint. And the definition of midpoint says that if R is the midpoint of PS, then I can say that PR is congruent to RS. So now I just simply need to write that. So I'm going to say PR is congruent to RS, and my reason for that is going to be the definition of midpoint. Okay, now I've labeled everything as I went along, so that makes it easier when I complete the problem. I know I'm done here, but I still need to take one more step. I know all these sides are congruent, but I do need to put the last step, which is what we're really trying to prove here. So triangle PQR is congruent to triangle STR. That was our proof. And my reason for this is going to be side, side, side. If 3 sides are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. The next one I want to do on the sheet is number 3. Now, it does not matter to me if you have these all in order on this practice sheet. More than likely they won't be. But just make sure you number them, and then you can reference what it actually is on the sheet that I gave you. Okay, so I want to put my statements and my reasons, draw my line, make my chart. Alright, so for this one, I see, and I'm going to mark up a little bit here, it says AC is congruent to AD, and then it also tells me that CB is congruent to BD. And I know that I'm working with side-side-side proofs, so that gives me an idea of what I need to accomplish here. I need to figure out how that side is going to be congruent. So let's start by writing down what they have given us. So the first thing that they told us is that AC is congruent to AD. And this is given. The next thing we know is that CB is congruent to BD, and that's given. So now I just need to think through, how can I say that AB is congruent to AB? So if I look back at my reference sheets from Unit 2, remember how I said these are going to be so important. If you have not found those yet, get them out, find them. If you will recall that the reflexive property is going to help us here. I can say that AB, so I'll write that as number 3, AB is congruent to AB, and my reasoning for that is going to be the reflexive property. Okay, so now I have all 3 sides proven congruent. So my last step is, what am I trying to prove here? The triangle ABC is congruent to triangle ABD. And my reasoning for that, again, is going to be side, side, side. Okay, so that's it for the what I'm going to go over for the side, side, side proofs. I'm going to create another video and do 2 of the side angle side proofs.